what if the way we've typically thought about growing a church, just adding more people to the seats, maybe more programs, more events, what if that actually missed the fundamental point?
It's a really provocative question to start with.
It is, isn't it? Because today we're diving deep into something the sources call the DNA of reproducing churches.
That's right. And our sources, they really challenge that common perception. They argue that the real health, the vitality of a faith community isn't really measured by attendance or budget size even.
Not the usual metrics then.
No, it's measured by its inherent ability to, well, reproduce itself, to effectively birth new fellowships carrying the same vibrant gospel life forward.
So our mission for this deep dive is to really unpack that. What does it mean for a community to flourish by embracing multiplication, not just, addition?
Seeing that as its biblical heartbeat.
Exactly. We want to pull back the curtain on the core components that ignite this kind of dynamic, self-replicating movement.
And it feels particularly relevant right now, doesn't it? I mean, churches everywhere are navigating some pretty significant challenges, transformation.
Yeah, things are shifting. Traditional models seem to be struggling in places.
They are. And you see newer generations actively seeking, well, authenticity, genuine organic connection, a clear mission, maybe less formality and structure.
Right. So understanding how to truly thrive, not just survive, seems critical.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's unpack this core idea then. The sources hit us right away with this question. What if the true mark of a healthy church isn't how much it accumulates, but how effectively it reproduces? It really makes you stop and think.
It absolutely does. And what's insightful is the clear distinction they draw. It's about reproduction.
Which means multiplication.
Exactly. It's multiplication, not just addition. When churches settle for just adding more people into one place, well, they risk stagnation.
Becoming dependent on one location, maybe a few leaders.
Precisely. And they might fall short of their full mission. But when they really embrace multiplication growth, they unleash something dynamic.
Something that goes beyond the building.
Way beyond. It propels the gospel far further. It's a real shift in thinking.
The sources use a great analogy, an apple tree. Its success isn't just its girth, right?
Not how big the trunk is.
It's the apples it produces. And the kicker is each apple has seeds for a whole orchard.
That's the picture. Yeah. And connecting this, to the bigger theological frame, this isn't just some clever growth strategy.
It's deeper than that.
Much deeper. It's an echo of creation itself, kind of embedded in God's design. You go back to Genesis 1.28.
Be fruitful and multiply.
Exactly. It's not just biological. It's this profound theological mandate, a relational one even, to extend life, blessing, mirroring God as creator.
And Jesus picks this up, doesn't he? He elevates it.
He does, moving it squarely into the spiritual realm. Think about the parables. The mustard seed, the yeast.
Matthew 13. Tiny beginnings, huge world-transforming growth. But organic.
Explosive, yet organic, yeah. And then the Great Commission, Matthew 28. It crystallizes it. Our call isn't just making followers.
It's making reproducing disciples.
Yes. Yeah. People who can repeat the whole process. It's meant to be a chain reaction.
And the early church?
Yeah.
They actually did this.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Acts gives us this vivid picture. They grew not by hoarding people in one place, but by multiplying.
New communities popping up?
Constantly. As disciples were empowered and crucially sent out. Acts 2, you see that deep connection, shared life, spiritual fervor.
That created the environment for it.
It really did. It nurtured new believers. And Paul's letters, Romans 16, Titus 1, they're full of this urgency about sending leaders, planting churches.
So it was a deliberate strategy.
Absolutely. Multiplication through relational discipleship, decentralized leadership, planting autonomous fellowships. That was the apostolic way.
Okay, this is compelling. So if reproduction is the heartbeat, what makes up this biblical DNA? What are the core traits?
Yeah, the sources lay out several. Things like being prayer-centered, definitely Bible-rooted, having servant leadership.
Authentic fellowship comes up a lot.
It does. And a missional posture, a clear witness, even a global vision. But the key is, these aren't just ideals.
They're the lifeblood.
They are. And many fellowships, they stumble here. They confuse busy activity with maturity,
Programs without depth.
Exactly. Or they substitute structure for life, organization over the Spirit's movement. These core components seem to be the non-negotiables.
So let's dive into a few of these. What makes them so vital for multiplication? First up, intentional discipleship. The sources call it the lifeblood. How did that work?
Well, it's fundamentally relational. Mature believers don't just teach information. They invest.
Modeling it. Walking alongside.
Yes. Teaching, modeling, and then crucially, sending them out to do the same thing. Paul and Timothy, that's the classic example, right? Timothy 2.2.
Train others to train others.
That's the cascade, that chain reaction of spiritual growth. Without that hands-on investment, the cycle just, it breaks down.
Right, it stops, which flows right into the next one. Leadership development and empowerment. The sources say multiplication demands leaders who multiply leaders. That sounds like a big shift.
It is a huge shift for many. It means moving leadership away from control.
Towards empowerment.
Exactly. Mirroring Jesus' servant model, Mark 10, leading by serving, by lifting others up.
And the early church did this intentionally.
Very intentionally. Identifying, equipping, and then this is key, releasing leaders. Acts 14, Titus 1, commissioning elders in new communities.
So it wasn't just about a few figureheads.
Not at all. It democratized ministry. Every believer becomes a potential contributor, a multiplier. It's about building a pipeline, not just a platform.
Okay, and then there's this idea of organic relational community, koinonia. Why is that specific kind of community, like small groups or house churches, so essential?
Because that's where the rubber meets the road, really. Vulnerability, accountability, real encouragement.
Stuff that's hard in a big crowd.
Very hard. Acts 2, again, that model. It's the cradle of multiplication. And koinonia is deep. It's described as intimate, covenantal.
More than just showing up once a week.
Oh, much more. Sharing life, hearts, resources, burdens, purposes, all intertwined. Shared meals, prayer, struggles. That's the fertile ground.
Where the seeds can actually grow.
Precisely. Without that deep bond, new believers might not get the nourishment to become multipliers themselves.
Got it. Okay, next, gospel DNA. Sounds foundational. How does sticking to the core message, Jesus' life, death, resurrection, fuel reproduction?
Because fundamentally, that is the message. It's the power of the church. Romans 1.16, right? The gospel is the power of God for salvation.
So if the message gets diluted,
the multiplication isn't authentic. You risk producing weak or distorted versions of faith. Paul was adamant about guarding the gospel for Timothy 6.
it's the unique seed.
It is. Without that pure seed, you don't get genuine spiritual fruit. Simple as that.
And finally, critical mass. This isn't just about big numbers, is it? The definition mentions a minimum core of committed believers.
Right. It's qualitative, not just quantitative. It's about commitment, cohesion, maturity.
So after Pentecost, those 3,000 added, that provided a solid base.
A very substantial core, yeah. Made it functional, self-sustaining right away. But the sources also say smaller house churches achieve this too.
So size isn't the main factor.
No. It's about being robust enough to sustain real-life worship mission without being fragile or dependent. It's having a group deeply invested in those other components, discipleship, leadership, community, gospel, so they become a self-replicating unit.
Okay, this vision is powerful, but let's be real, it sounds hard. What are the common pitfalls? What stops churches from multiplying like this?
That's a really crucial question, and the sources are quite clear. One of the biggest dangers is just, well, confusing reproduction with program expansion.
Mistaking busyness for maturity.
Exactly. You get exhausting programs, but no real depth, no actual multiplication. Another huge one is just the fear of loss, fear of losing control.
Leaders hesitating to release influence or resources.
Yes, clinging too tightly to what they've built. And then there's just cultural resistance, institutional inertia. Change is hard.
Especially when it pushes people out of comfort zones.
Definitely. Shifting established patterns is tough.
So given those barriers, how do we actually unlock this potential? What are the practical steps?
Well, the sources offer some clear paths forward. First, and this is fundamental, we need to reframe how we measure success.
Moving beyond just attendance and budget.
Yes. Shifting focus to reproduction, to disciple-making as the key indicators of health. Counting reproducing disciples and churches, not just attendees.
That's a different scorecard.
It really is. Embracing fruitfulness over accumulation. Second, it means wholeheartedly embracing a culture of sending and release.
Celebrating sending people out.
Celebrating it as the highest form of faithfulness. Think of Jesus sending out the 72 in Luke 10. That's commissioning, trusting, not trying to keep everyone close.
Being willing to maybe thin your own numbers for the bigger picture.
That's the sacrificial part of it. And third, it involves simplicity and scalability.
Like the early church model.
Exactly. Acts 2, Romans 16. It was organic, adaptable house gatherings, shared meals, lay leadership.
Which means it wasn't dependent on big buildings or budgets.
Not at all. That simple, replicable structure lets the gospel flourish anywhere, even in tough places. It shows reproduction depends on the model, not the money. It frees the church up.
Okay, so for you listening, if you want to see this biblical DNA come alive where you are, the sources actually offer practical tools, right? Like diagnostic checklists.
They do. Things to help you evaluate honestly. Does your fellowship have these essentials? Are there barriers that need addressing?
Can you give an example?
Sure, there's something called the Biblical Church Litmus Test. It asks about things like biblical community, leadership, worship, mission, autonomy, 5 key areas.
And another one.
There's a reproduction potential assessment too. Looks at 7 vital signs like how central is prayer? Is teaching truly Bible-rooted? Is leadership willing to release control?
So these aren't just theoretical.
No, they're for honest self-assessment, to move beyond theory.
And really ask yourself, courageously, is my church truly reproducing or are we just adding? That feels like the core question.
It is the pivot point. And connecting it all back, the sources really underscore that embracing this DNA, it's not just about survival.
It's about thriving.
Thriving in mission with impact that lasts for generations. It's ultimately about aligning ourselves, our communities, with God's own heartbeat, participating in his work.
So maybe the true measure of a church's health isn't the size of the crowd on Sunday or how polished the programs are.
Why then?
Maybe it's the power of its sending. Its faith to release its best people, to multiply, to trust God's kingdom advance, even when, perhaps especially when, it means letting go. And that brings us towards the end of our deep dive today. The core idea. True vitality springs from reproduction, not just accumulation.
Rooted in Scripture, lived out by the early church.
We really hope you'll reflect on these insights. Think about how they apply in your context.
Maybe even explore some of those diagnostic tools. Start your own journey of understanding and unlocking that potential in your community.